The wind howled through the Wyoming pines like a starving coyote, dragging veils of snow across the frozen valley. Winter of 1887 had settled over the land like a judgment. On a lonely ridge stood a modest ranch house, its chimney coughing thin tendrils of smoke into a leaden sky. The porch creaked beneath the weight of frost, old boards sighing under winter's grip. The world seemed frozen and time silent, brittle. Still until the quiet thud of small footsteps broke through the hush. She couldn't have been more. Then, 6, her boots were far too large, a man's maybe, and her coat hung from her shoulders like it had been borrowed from another life. Torn at the sleeve, fraying at the hem. Trembling hands disappeared inside the folds, and her cheeks were smeared with dirt and wine burnt raw. She stood before the door as if it were the last hope in a world gone dark. Then, with all the bravery a child could summon, she raised a balled fist and knocked. For a breathless moment, there was no response. Then, from behind the thick cedar, came the slow, heavy sound of footsteps. A latch clicked, the door swung inward. Standing in the frame was Silas Reed, tall, broad-shouldered, face unshaven from long days without company. His coat hung heavy with dust and the scent of pine. Smoke, 34 years carved into him by wind, war, and silence, eyes the color of cold steel, sharp and guarded. A man who once rode with the cavalry and later turned his back on the world, to lose himself in the stillness of his land. But that stillness shattered the moment he saw her. The little girl looked up at him with wide brown eyes flecked with amber. "He left us, sir," she said, her voice quivering. "Mama said you might help." Silas blinked once. The girl sniffled, clutching a square of cloth to her chest tattered and stained with blood. "Mama?" He rasped, the name scratching through his throat like gravel. "She's hurt bad in the woods." The girl said, "She told me to find Silas, said you'd know what to do." He crouched before her, his jaw tightening as he studied her pale, dirt-smudged face. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Annabel," she whispered. "Mama's name is Amara." The name hit him like a buried blade drawn swift through old wounds. His lips parted, but no sound emerged. Not since the day she left without a word, without a trace had he heard her name aloud. "Please, sir," Annabel begged, tears finally spilling over. "Mama said you were the only one who'd come." A storm of memories broke loose in his chest. He hadn't seen Amara since she vanished from town, from his life, leaving only silence behind. But now she had sent their daughter to find him. He looked out past the porch, to where the tree line thickened, and the snow fell heavier with every heartbeat. "How far?" he asked. "Not far," Annabel said. "I followed the river like." She told me. "She's in a hollow past the broken wagon wheel tree." He knew the one. An old lightning-struck elm split down the middle, a skeletal sentinel on the northern ridge. He had carved his initials into it once, right beside hers. He stood, his voice steady. "Come inside. You're freezing." But Annabel shook her head. She said, "Don't wait. She's bleeding, and her legs," she screamed when I touched it. In a flash, Silas turned and grabbed his coat, his rifle, his bedroll. He slung a wool blanket around the girl's shoulders, scooping her up in his arms. "You're riding with me." She followed him without a word, eyes wide and watchful. He hoisted her onto the horse, mounted behind her, and kicked the gelding into a hard gallop. The wind lashed his face. Snow blurred the world to gray. But in his mind, there was only one word now: dash Amara dot as they galloped down the ridge. He fought the storm and the roar of memory clawing through his chest. He had never stopped wondering why she left, but answers could wait. She needed him, this time. He wouldn't be too late. The cold bit deeper the farther they rode, hooves slipping over ice and snow drifts. Silas wrapped Annabel in his oilskin coat. She clung to the saddle horn, small hands white-knuckled. Her gaze locked on the path ahead like her focus alone might guide them faster. "Keep your head down," he shouted over the wind. "We're close now." She nodded. "Mama said the wagon wheel tree would point the way." He saw it then, looming in the distance, the split elm, blackened and gnarled. He turned off the trail, hooves cracking over frozen brush. The snow thickened. Night sank faster now, and through the hush of falling flakes came a low, guttural sound. Wolves. Silas reined in hard. "Don't look," he whispered. "They won't follow." Eyes glinted in the darkness yellow, hungry, but the rising storm was enough to keep them at bay. And then he saw her, a still figure, half buried in snow beneath broken branches, torn fabric, blood. He leapt down before the horse had fully stopped. "Stay back, Annabel." He dropped to his knees. Amara, her hair was matted with ice, her face pale, lips nearly blue. A gash ran along her temple. One leg bent horribly wrong beneath her. Her shoulders were soaked red. He pressed his fingers to her throat, faint, but there, alive. "Amara, it's me, Silas. I've got you." Now, she stirred faintly, too weak to wake. He worked fast, wrapping her shoulder with his scarf. As he moved, his eyes caught something, a pale scar curled around her wrist, old and thin. He remembered long sleeves in summer, the silence, the hidden pain. He gathered her into his arms, lifted Annabel, and mounted the horse. The ride back was slower. The storm pressed hard. The path blurred in the silence. Memory returned. She'd come to town when they were 20, half Navajo, raised by a missionary aunt. First at the saloon, then the dress shop. She laughed like wind through canyon grass, smelled of sage and wildflower. She danced barefoot by the creek. He had loved her from the first moment. His father had hated her. "You'd throw this ranch away for a squaw." He'd spat. "You'd do this. You're no son of mine." Silas had stood on the porch with a ring in his pocket, ready to choose her. And then she was gone. No word. Weeks later, a letter arrived. "Live the life you were born into. Don't come looking. Some love is better left buried." But it never stayed buried. Not if she had sent their daughter to find him. She had run to save him from losing everything. And now she had returned, broken and desperate, because she had no one else left. And this time, he would not let her go. When Amara woke, the world smelled of cedar smoke and warmth. Her back pressed against soft flannel, her leg throbbed, and her shoulder pulsed with pain. But the quiet startled her most. No yelling, no boots pounding the floor, just peace, wooden beams above. A fire glowed. A kettle hissed softly on the hearth. A blanket tucked round her with care she no longer remembered receiving. She tried to sit up and gasped. Footsteps. Silas stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her like he'd never left. His beard was longer, eyes more lined. But they were the same, those eyes that once made her forget the world. "Amara," he said, quiet. Her throat tightened. "Silas, you're still here. I never left." The silence between them was heavy and sacred. Her eyes welled. She looked away. "I thought maybe you'd forget." He said nothing, only moved to pour her water from the kettle and handed her the tin cup. She reached with her good hand. Their fingers brushed. Her voice shook. "Annabel, she's safe," he said. "Sleeping in the next room. She hasn't. Let go of your shawl." Relief broke across her face like sunlight through cloud. She drank slowly, still not quite meeting his gaze. "You found us. You sent her to me," he replied. "She found me." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years between them dissolved. But neither crossed the space that still remained. "I wrapped your leg best I could," he said. "Your shoulder too. You'll need rest." "Thank you." He nodded and turned to leave. "Silas," she murmured. He paused. "I didn't know where else to go." "You came to the right place," he said, then stepped out and closed the door softly behind him. Days passed like melting snow, slow, quiet. Amara healed in inches. Silas moved through the house like a ghost present, but careful. He fed the fire, brought broth, checked the bandages. Their words were measured. "Do you need anything?" "No." "Thank you." "Is your pain manageable?" But their eyes said what their mouths could not. She noticed his limp, subtle but steady. He noticed how she flinched even in silence. One afternoon, Annabel bounded in, hands full of charcoal and crumpled paper. "Look, Mama," she beamed. "I drew our house." Amara smiled, touched the paper. "It's beautiful, sweet girl." She turned to Silas. "And this is you chopping wood. See, that's your beard." He laughed under his breath. "You drew it too short." "Oops, I'll make it scruffier next time." Then she paused, looking between them. "Can I call you?" She hesitated. "I mean, is it okay if I call you Mr. Silas?" The room froze. Silas opened his mouth, but no words came. Amara's breath caught. "Sorry," Annabel said, shrinking. Mama always said you were kind. I didn't mean, it's all right, Silas said gently, crouching. You can call me whatever feels right. She nodded, then slipped into her mother's arms. She's always been strong, Amara murmured. He sat across from her in silence, watching the fire crackle and dance. Her eyes reflected it like stormlight. There was so much to say, but not yet, not tonight, later. As the fire burned low, Amara sat on the bed struggling to change her bandage. The jar of salve slipped from her hand. You should let someone help with that, Silas said from the doorway. She turned quickly, startled. The blanket slid from her shoulder, revealing skin bruised and marked. He saw the scar she always tried to hide. I can manage, she said, reaching, but he stepped forward. Let me. She froze, then nodded. He knelt beside her, dipping his fingers in the salve. His touch was rough, but careful. She flinched not from pain, but memory. Who did this to you? She looked down. Her voice was barely a whisper. Wesley Granger. His spine straightened. Granger, the rancher? He's still alive, and more powerful than ever. She pulled the blanket close, trembling. After I left, I was young, lost. Granger offered protection, said he wanted a wife, a native bride to make him look noble. Silas clenched his jaw. He never loved me, she said. He owned me, beat me if I spoke, kept me locked away. I tried to leave once he dragged me back by my hair. Silas turned to the window, fists tight. And Annabelle? He asked. Silence. He knew she wasn't his. Her laugh, her eyes. She reminded him of everything he couldn't control. She swallowed hard. One night, he beat me so bad I couldn't walk. Then he dragged us to the canyon's edge. I thought he'd kill us. Silas turned, horror in his eyes. But he didn't. Just left us there. Said if we came back, he'd finish it. Her eyes brimmed. I told Annabelle to follow the river, to find a man named Silas. I didn't even know if you were still alive. In 3 strides, he was in front of her, dropping to his knees. You came to me, he said hoarsely. I had no one else, she whispered. No one I trusted. He reached, brushed a knuckle down her cheek, but didn't touch. I should have fought for you back then, he murmured. Burned the whole damn ranch down. She stared at him, eyes wide. You were young. I didn't want to be the reason you lost everything. But I lost you. He said. Silence. Then, her voice, barely audible. Do you blame me for not telling you about her? No, he said. I blame myself for giving you a reason not to. Time folded around them like snow falling soft on earth. She closed her eyes, and he took her hand, holding it as if it might shatter. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of it. Spring arrived late to the Wyoming hills, reluctant and shy, but on that particular day, sunlight touched the land thin, pale, but honest. Silas stood by the porch rail, arms folded across his chest, watching Annabelle near the corral. She hummed softly as she crouched over a plank of wood, dragging a stub of charcoal in slow, deliberate arcs. Her curls shimmered in the light like honeyed rope. The way she furrowed her brow in concentration, the little scrunch of her nose, it was Amara all over again. But when she laughed, it wasn't Wesley's echo, it was his. Silas tightened his grip on the railing, the tilt of her head, the shape of her mouth, each small detail chipped away at a past he had tried for years to bury. And now, that past was alive and drawing horses in the dirt. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Amara stepped outside, wrapped tightly in her shawl, her limp still present, a ghost of the pain she'd endured. Her skin was pale, but her eyes had never changed. They were always deeper than they let on, always holding more than any words could reveal. She likes the mornings, she said quietly. She gets that from you. They stood side by side in silence, watching the girl. Finally, Silas turned, his voice low, edged with something sharp and aching. Amara, is she mine? Amara stiffened. Her eyes dropped to the porch floor. I didn't want you to feel tied to me, she said, barely above a whisper, or to her. I knew what it would cost you back then. That's not an answer. She inhaled slowly, clutching her shawl as though it might hold her together. Yes, she said at last. She is. The world tilted. The wind held its breath. Silas looked back at Annabelle, now crouched in the grass, drawing horses with. The very stick he'd used the day before. How long? He asked. Since the first time I felt her heartbeat, Amara said. I thought about writing. I thought about telling you. But I kept convincing myself it would ruin your life, that staying away was protecting you. From what? He asked sharply. The truth. No, she said, her voice fraying. From having to choose. From your father's threats. From this town. From losing everything the way I did. He raked a hand through his hair, the old ache roaring back. You think I would have walked away if I'd known? You walked away when it was just me. That's not fair. He snapped. You left a note and disappeared. She met his gaze, steady despite the trembling in her fingers. Your father came to me, said he'd cut you off, take your name, and offered to handle me. I thought I was saving you. Silas fell silent. He remembered the silence after she vanished, the empty station platform, the crumpled letter that arrived weeks too late. He'd never asked why. He'd only bled quietly. I didn't want Annabel to grow up afraid, Amara said softly. But I failed, and when we were thrown out, when I thought I might die, I told her to find you. Because even after all these years, I believed you would try. He exhaled sharply, fists clenched. She's mine, he said. Not a question, a truth. I never meant to hide her, Amara said. I thought I was protecting her. Maybe I was wrong. He looked down at the little girl, now ranging wildflowers in neat rows, as if enacting a ritual no one had taught her, but she instinctively understood. I missed 7 years, he murmured bitterly. You can have every year after this, she whispered. He turned to her, something inside him breaking open. I don't want to miss another day, he said, voice catching. Not with her, not with you. Amara didn't move. Her gaze was full of truths too old for blame, too deep for simple forgiveness. Silas stepped off the porch and walked toward the girl, Annabel. He called gently. She looked up, bright-eyed. Yes, Mr. Silas. He knelt beside her. Would it be all right if I kept one of these flowers from my windowsill? She beamed and handed him the brightest bloom. Mama says yellow ones mean hope. He took it gently. I think your mama's right. The days stretched longer. The wind softened. Spring began to claim the valley, coaxing green from the earth and laughter from the throat of a child. Silas spoke little, but his hands never rested. He mended the barn's broken hinge without being asked, replaced the cracked pane in Amra's window. He sharpened long-neglected tools, shaping the cabin into something more than a shelter, into a home. Each morning he split wood and stacked it neatly. Each evening he swept the hearth clean. He never asked for thanks. Amara watched through the window as he built a small bench just the right size for Annabel. He carved her initials into its side. When it was finished, he didn't present it with ceremony. He simply left it on the front step. Annabel squealed with delight when she found it. Mama, look, my own porch seat. Amara turned away quickly, blinking away tears. Later, Silas saddled his old gelding and lifted Annabel into the saddle. He walked beside her as she rode, his hand ever near, steady in case she slipped. When the horse trotted, she shrieked with joy. She's a natural, he told Amara that evening. Takes after someone with strong blood. Amara didn't respond, but her gaze lingered longer than it should have. That night, when pain kept her awake, she found a second pillow beneath her knee, placed while she slept. Beside the bed sat a steaming stone wrapped in cloth, radiating warmth. No note, just care. Her throat tightened. At sunrise, she stepped outside and froze. Silas was in the yard, legs crossed, carefully braiding Annabel's hair as she giggled. Too tight? He asked. A little. She giggled. He tried again, slower this time. Amara stepped back inside before they noticed. That evening, he sat on the porch carving something with his whittling knife. What are you making? Amara asked, passing by. He held it up, a hair comb, so she can feel pretty, even when things are hard. That night, Amara left a sprig of lavender on his workbench. Once, she found him asleep beside Annabel's bed. Her tiny hand curled in his. The little girl slept deeply, one arm across his chest. Amara stood in the doorway, hand over her mouth. A tear traced down Silas's cheek. Days passed like that, quiet, deliberate. They never spoke of love, but it lingered in the air like the scent of pine. When Amara hummed while stirring stew, Silas paused to listen. When she reached for his hand and didn't pull away fast enough, something in her steadied. Still, the words went unsaid until one evening she found him repairing the porch rail, sweat dampening his shirt. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked softly. He looked up. "Because I want you both to stay." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." He walked past her into the house. She stood there, staring at the sky, heart rising and falling like breath held too long. The wind shifted that morning. The horses grew restless. The pine trees stilled. Then came dust on the southern trail for riders. Silas stepped off the porch, rifle in hand. At the front, cloaked in a black coat gleaming like tar, was Wesley Granger. 3 hired guns flanked him mean, saddle-worn men who served coin, not conscience. Granger reined in. Smirking, "Reed. Playing house, I see." Silas's voice was cold. "Turn around. You're not welcome here." Granger dismounted, tossing the reins like he owned the land. "You've got something of mine. My wife, my daughter." "She was never yours," said a voice from the doorway. Amara stood tall despite her limp, shielding Annabel behind her. Granger's grin twisted. "So you can still talk. Thought I fixed that." Silas stepped between them. "Speak to her again, and I'll feed you your own teeth." Granger's men drew their guns. Amara gasped, pulling Annabel close. Silas lunged, knocking one man down. The second fired, grazing his arm. Pain flared, but he didn't fall. Granger reached for Amara. She slapped him. He hit her. Annabel screamed. Silas tackled Granger. They crashed into the rail, fists flying. Granger pulled a knife. Amara grabbed a shovel and struck. He dropped the blade. Silas grabbed it, pressing the tip to Granger's throat. "Go ahead." Granger sneered. "Kill me. I am the law out here," Silas growled. But the sheriff arrived then, flanked by townsfolk and deputies. "Enough." Amara stepped forward, voice clear and steady. "This man is no husband. He's a slaver, a trafficker, moving native women and orphans. He locked me away, beat me, threatened our child." Gasps, whispers. "You can check his cellar," she said to the sheriff. "You'll find cages, ledgers." The sheriff nodded grimly to his deputy. Townsfolk murmured. The tide turned. The sheriff drew his pistol. "Wesley Granger, you're under arrest." Granger spat rage. "You think this makes you free?" "I was never yours to own," Amara replied. As deputies dragged him away, Annabel clung to her. "Mother." Silas leaned on the railing, blood soaking his shirt. "You're hurt," Amara said. "You're bleeding." He looked at her, smiling through the pain. "Worth it. You don't have to fight anymore," she whispered. "I always will, for you, for her." Silas drifted in and out of fevered sleep. Amara stayed by his side, prayed in Navajo, healed him with roots and warm cloths. On the 4th night, he opened his eyes. "You stayed." "Of course." He found her hand. "I want to be your husband, her father, not a name in truth." "I forgave you," she whispered, "the moment I told her to find you." He smiled. "Then let's begin again." "From now," she nodded. Their foreheads met. The wind outside carried the scent of spring. Wesley Granger's crimes came to light. His empire of lies collapsed. The valley breathed easier. The cabin changed. Silas painted the porch, planted a garden. Annabel picked blue and yellow for the wildflowers, sky and sun. Laughter lived there now. Silas built her a swing. Amara hung laundry in the breeze. She sang again, sometimes in English, sometimes in Navajo. In the evenings, they sat together on the porch, her head on his chest, his arm around her. They didn't speak of the past, not because it hurt, but because the present was enough. One morning, Annabel burst inside, cheeks flushed. "Mama, Papa, come see." The hills had bloomed overnight. Wildflowers scattered, like confetti, at the far end. Her pony waited. "Watch me ride," she cried. And she did, galloping through the field, laughing like the world had never known darkness. Silas wrapped his arm around Amara. "She's free," he said. Amara's voice caught. "So are we." They stood there, holding each other, watching their daughter soar like wind-made flesh. Inside, in a drawer once filled with regret, rested a letter, written in Silas's hand. for her. Someday, wherever your heart returns, my love, know that I am there. A home is not made of wood or stone. A home is where the people choose each other again and again, where laughter lingers after the tears, where bullets missed but hearts never did.